What up, YouTube? It's Kurt here, and today we're going to talk about why no one really plays Millennium-Eyes, and why it's really, as a card, it's good, but as an archetype, it's really not seen much competitive play. Sorry, let's take a look at this. All right, so the thing that makes Millennium-Eyes restrict is that it gets really good negation, and it gets some really good support cards. Part of the problem is that it requires so many cards to kind of get on the field. And it's not an offensive deck. It requires your opponent being super aggressive and you carrying certain specific cards so that you can take advantage of their aggression. But if your opponent isn't aggressive, it's hard to make this deck kind of go. So we're going to take a look at why that's the case. So if we look at Millennium-Eyes, obviously relinquish +1 effect monster. When your opponent activates a monster effect, this is a quick effect. You can target one effect monster in the field or graveyard and then attach it as basically, yeah, you can attach it to this card and it gets the attack and defense. Monsters that equip name cannot attack. Also, their effects in the field and activate effects are negated. All right, so as far as strictly an effect, that's a really good effect, actually. The card does start with 0 attack, and it's still a really good effect. So the problem with it is you have to know what time to activate it. And if your opponent knows that this card is on the field, basically what they'll resort to a lot of the time, if they're going second, yeah, even if you want second and you couldn't really get a good board up, what they'll do is they'll basically just attack it. There's nothing that prevents this thing from just tanking to an attack, and then they'll be able to make their plays. So basically, you have to get this. The best way to get this on the field is to put it on the field when you know your opponent is going to summon monster that has to activate its effects. It wouldn't be a quick effect. It's when you summon this monster kind of effect. That's when you want to activate it, because then you automatically be able to negate that and pretty much be able to just not set the board. But then you can't activate Relinquished Fusion. You cannot activate Relinquished Fusion from the graveyard during your opponent's turn. You can only do it during your turn. Sometimes a lot of people have backup plays. So that's just part of the problem. The thing is that it requires a lot of support in order to be good, and you don't always have that support in hand. So an illusionist is a good card. You can activate illusionist during your opponent's turn. That can completely shut down any moves your opponent can make. So this card is very good at snowballing, but not always very good at otherwise being generally played. And Faceless Mage, if Faceless Mage was a 4-star card, it would be a very good card. Right now, because it's 5-star, you can't really summon it at all. It's just not very good, and that's unfortunate because sometimes you just end up with major brick hands. So obviously in any deck, any relinquished deck, it's good to play Kaiju's in Slumber. So that in itself can be a really good engine. You can end up with a lot of FTKs, and yeah, that in itself can be really, really good. And obviously I have, I do have Battle Fader, mostly to go with Allure of Darkness and just to cover for any bricks that we have. Pre-preparation of rites is a good one. Of course, we have Illusion Ritual, because Relinquish can be a decent card on its own. It's not great, but it can be decent. Instant Fusion for things like Thousand Eyes. I have a lot of stuff in my extra deck that shouldn't be in here. I apologize, but mostly the extra deck isn't used as much in restricted decks. Then I have... Yeah, I have some other cards. I have this because I don't use many traps. I have Breaker. Breaker's good with Citadel. You can pretty much throw Breaker in any deck. All right, but we'll watch some replays here. You'll see, and I'll show you when it's good and when it's not good. All right, so let's see. We'll get to the two really good replays. This deck is capable of getting FTKs, and it's really awesome when you do get an FTK. All right, so here this guy's going to play zombies. Not going to get the best starting hand. His starting hand is going to be okay because he does get Spirit King, and that's the idea of getting. Well, I think in America it's called something different, but whatever. All right, so basically I get Slumber on the first turn, and that's just how I get the victory. Yeah, if you get Slumber on the first victory and you get a good hand, you can get a pretty easy FTK. Along with Breaker, and I structured the cards just to get it just mathematically correct. All right, one more replay, then we'll take a look at why another replay of why it's not seeing a lot of competitive play. All right, so here it looks like a lot of Galaxy, and he actually makes a pass, and we're gonna make a pass too. That's part of the problem with this deck. Sometimes you end up having to pass because you can't really do much. Now, maybe there's other things you can mix besides like the breaker combo that would make this deck excellent. So now, again, we hard drew Slumber there. It's hard to get an FTK without Slumber, but in this case, we were able to get it. All right, so that's what's awesome about this deck. You can sometimes take advantage of the opponent. Sometimes you can actually get a cheap win on Thunder Dragons with this deck. Thunder Dragons actually have a really hard time with this deck because they're kind of weak to kaijus, and when you can take advantage of kaijus and then negate all the crazy Thunder Dragon effects that happen in the graveyard, that's actually really, really good. So I've gotten some wins on Thunder Dragons. Unfortunately, I didn't save any of those replays, so I'm sorry about that. But here's this one will help you to see. Now, I have a little bit of different structure, but we're going to take a look at why Millennium-Eyes isn't always that great. Unless you have... one of the reasons is you don't often have a whole lot of monsters surrounding it. So yeah, right now I have Relinquished. Relinquished as a card itself, it's never seen, as far as I know, never seen any competitive play. So yeah, not that great of a card. And you can see here, it's pretty easy if you destroy its equipped monster. It's just really easy to take care of. So here's where we have Millennium-Eyes on the field. And this is kind of where it shines, because we're able to snowball him a bit, and we get a 4,800 monster, and that's really good. But here's where the problem is. We don't have... this is a pretty typical hand. We normally have a lot of support cards, and we don't have many attacking monsters on the field. So that's part of the problem. We don't have many attacking monsters. So yeah, and he's able to protect his monster, and we end up actually losing because he has kaiju. So as you can see, one big reason this deck is not played a lot is because it is slow. That's just part of the problem. It's a very slow deck, and modern Yu-Gi-Oh is all about speed. It can be very fast sometimes, but I was very fortunate there that I drew a monster that could actually attack. But we actually took care of Thunder Dragons in this deck by having Relinquished and having an extra monster. We were very fortunate though because we got the real big snowball on it. But that's why this deck isn't always that great. All right, so hopefully this helps you guys. I have a lot of fun playing this deck, and if you have a lot of fun playing decks in general, go for it. I probably wouldn't spend money on this. It's still a pretty expensive deck for not being very competitive. But I like it a lot, so that's why I would choose to play it, at least online. I go for much cheaper options in my personal life, but online it's still a lot of fun. So I recommend you guys actually trying it out. Don't use it competitively, but try it out with your friends if you have that kind of money. So again, this is Kurt. I appreciate it. Any questions, leave them in the comment section, subscribe, all that stuff. Thanks, guys.